are so excited and appreciative of her being here with us today. Her work is amazing. If you've ever been able to watch it, I've seen her YouTube videos and I just am in love. So I'm so excited to have her here with us. And I hope you guys all here too to watch her. And thank you guys for coming.
Hello, everyone. I echo the sentiments that have already gone forth by Kiara and Ignacio. I am Kimberly York, the Interim Director for Black Programs, and we are so excited and honored to have my good friend from my very own hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, Miss Honeybell Bay. I'll just share a little bit of information about Honey before I turn the stage, so to speak, over to her. In May 2020, the New York Times announced Belle Bay was named one of the country's Poet Laureate Fellows for the Academy of American Poets. She is the founder, director, and writer for the International Distinguished Gentleman of Spoken Word, a character-based performance troupe for adolescent males ages 12 to 21. The group has traveled to many places, including Paris, and has performed before thousands at the US Embassy, before the consulate, and before schools and community centers throughout Europe. Belle Bay has won numerous awards and congressional recognition for her innovative programming strategies engaging students from high-risk environments. What I can tell you firsthand about Honey Belle Bay is poetry is not what she does, it is who she is. And she has forever been just a walking spoken word since I met her. We have shared the same stage and platforms doing youth work in Cleveland, Ohio, and she still calls Cleveland home and still holding things down. Before I turn it over, I do want to acknowledge a couple of people. First, I would like to say, I know that I saw Dr. Edwards is here. Dr. Edwards, thank you so much for joining us. Let me see if I can everybody turn on who wants to turn on their camera? Dr. Edwards, can you turn on your camera so we can say hello to you? Would you like to have a couple of words, Dr. Edwards? No, okay. Dr. Edwards, and please forgive me because I cannot get this title right. Dr. Edwards is the director of the student leadership. That's as far as I can get. I'm sorry, I can't remember the whole title. But thank you for coming, Dr. Edwards. I would also like to recognize Dr. Gina Jones, who is the Assistant Vice President of Human Resources. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Mr. Christopher Acosta with us, Mr. Poetry Man himself. Thank you so much for joining us. And without further ado, I am going to turn, oh, I'm sorry, Miss Ophelia Watkins is here also, the Interim Director for Housing. Without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Honey Belle Bay.
I know what the caged bird feels. Alas, when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft like a springing grass, and the river flows like a stream of glass, when the first bird sings and the first bud opes, and its faint perfume on its chalice steals, oh, I know what the caged bird feels. I know why the caged bird beats his wings until his blood is red on the cruel bars, and he must fly back to his perch and cling. When he fain would be on a bough a swing, and a pain still throbs to its old scars, and it pulses again like a keener sting. Oh, I know why he beats his wings. I know why the caged bird sings. Me. When his wing is bruised and his bosom is sore, when he beats his bars and he would be free. This is not a carol of joy or glee, but a prayer that he sends from his heart's deep core, but a plea to upwards to heaven. He sings. Oh, I know why the caged bird sings. I know why the caged bird sings. Good evening. Those were the infamous words of my favorite poet, Paul Laurence Dunbar, the first African American poet to gain fame and notoriety. And we all know the works of Dr. Maya Angelou, the great late Dr. Maya Angelou, and her book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, but it was written off of that poem, Sympathy, by Paul Laurence Dunbar, who talks about this bird or this African American being trapped in this society and doing, imagine that. Imagine a bird who wants so badly to be free to the point where he's beating the cage and he's bleeding and blood is all over the place and he wants out of this trapped existence, but he can't get free. That is what I think about every time I think about this weapon of poetry. So tonight, I want to welcome you to what I'm deeming, this is not an open mic. This is not a poetry reading. Hopefully this is an experience. I think that's why I've been excited about this, because it is such an experience. So let me tell you what this journey is going to be like. There are 3 things in my life that I have never tried to be, just to tell you a little bit about myself. I've never woken up one day in my life and tried to be a woman. Innately, I just came here as that, is who I am. I've never tried with intent to be African American. It's just who I am. I came here as that. And I have never, not even one day of my life, tried to be a poet. I just am. It's in my blood, it's in my nature. I breathe it. I'm as much a poet as I am African American. I'm as much a poet as I am woman. If I tried to be any of the 3, I just couldn't. Those are things innately a part of my identity. So on this journey, I hope and pray that there are some people who came to this journey and you have something to share, because this is this circular experience. If you are a poet in the room, do not cheapen this experience by not joining the experience. Please share. These words and this circular experience belong to all of us. How do you, in a time such as now, not own the power of your words when we need it? We need it to heal. We need the revolution of those words. So the first thing that I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to share a piece called Revolutionary Breath that was written out of pain. Then I'll share the first piece that I wrote about voters' rights. And I will be honest, it was written out of anger. And I was so angry at the time at the notion that children could be kept in cages, that it kept me awake, this level of rage, that our country could be so divided that we would keep children locked up like that cage bird and they wanted to be free. And you have this poet all the way in Cleveland, Ohio, who could not find the key and go unlock it and set everyone's child free. How do you live with that? And you're a poet. How do you sleep and you know it? That's the type of rage that happened all 2018, all 2019, all 2020. And just now do we heal. If we're all united, just now do we, in a united way, heal from such terror and pain. And how can you be part of the human race and not feel that? The notion of a child sleeping on a aluminum foil blanket, how do you heal from that when they're part of me innately? How do you heal from that? So some of this poetry is along those pages. How do you heal when young African Americans in your own community are being shot down? And I'm not going to wait and keep it a secret. I'll just tell you one such judged African American, he's going to join me on the mic. The same judged young man, he's coming. He's in the studio waiting with me and tell his story of what it's like living on these streets of Cleveland when just to be African American is your crime. When you can be a student at Morehouse University, and he is, and still be stopped and judged just by the dark melanated nature of his skin. How do we then use this poetry as revolutionary power? So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share the first part of that. So let me see by a show of hands. If you don't want to show your face, that's okay. Just give me the hand emoji. How many people are excited to be on this journey? Because I'm excited tonight. By show of hands, you can send the clap. You can do whatever it needs to be because I am excited. Oh, I see the hands. That means we're ready. Let me start by, before I share this, Kimberly York, thank you so very much for inviting me. To the entire executive team, Kimberly, your level of excitement about this did nothing but spill over to me and make me uber excited. Of all the things I'm doing in Black History Month, I've been most excited about this. To my lead partner at our local school here, who I call Principal Extraordinaire, Dr. Lee Buddy, who's on the line. Thank you so much, sir, just for joining us and being here. To all the other representatives from Cleveland who's on the line that you thought it not robbery just to join us tonight. And I see several names in the chat. I'm excited to have you here. And I pray that I don't waste your time. Again, if there is a poet, please, the Red Robin type of circles in family where you want to jump in, or like Double Dutch, we were kids and you waiting to get you, jump in. This is a speaker who you are not offending me by interrupting me. I enjoy it. So if you, I don't agree with that, that's not going to offend me. I'm not that kind of speaker. I have something to say on that or some poetry to add. You are welcome to do that. That's this experience. All right. So with that, I'm going to share my screen for the very first poem. And after that, I want to take 2 seconds for you all to kind of dialogue. I'm going to open the mic for you to share your thoughts and your opinion. The only way with all the things that was heavy on this poet's heart that I could heal even a little bit last year was to write about it and then to videotape it. And so this is videotaped in the same community I live in. So with me saying that I'm not a poet that tries to be a poet, like this is for real for me. So the poorest city in the state of Ohio is where this poem was videotaped. It's the poorest city in the entire state. It's called East Cleveland. I currently still live in that city. On both streets, both sides of the streets of my street right now are 2 memorials for African-American men gunned down in the past 30 days that we've turned. So this is real life for me. This is a poet mentioned, and I appreciate the bio, a poet featured in the New York Times trying to be anything. This is the real life, what I see every day. I see COVID killing us. I see us killing us. I see the police killing us. And every day, this is a poet who's trying to work through that and give those same words to African-American young men to help work through that pain and the trauma of it through poetry. So if I shed a tear, it's a real tear because there are new trees on my street covered in balloons. And there are new days where I hit the floor because I don't know how to stop the gun violence in my community. And I'm trying. So this is not a poet faking it. This is that real life stuff you all are getting all the way in New Mexico. So thank you all for being here and giving me the space to be here with you. All right, the train is moving. Let's go.
I was not alive to survive the Middle Passage. They did that for me. I was not alive to survive the Montgomery bus boycott. I was not alive to produce during the Harlem Renaissance. They did that for me. I was not alive to march on Washington. I was not alive to cross the Pettus Bridge. I was not alive to survive a bloody Sunday, but I keep seeing a bloody Sunday, a bloody Monday, a bloody Tuesday, a bloody Wednesday, a bloody Thursday, a bloody Friday. I was not alive, but I am alive now. I am alive now. This is my renaissance. This is my revolution. This is my revitalization. This is my revolt. Carnivorous belligerence with racial indifference and hands in pocket arrogance. And you can press your full body weight on the lifeless with ignorance and still question his innocence when this nation has a true case of impotence and it can't get it up when you keep cutting life down. Carnivorous belligerence with racial indifference and hands in pocket arrogance. How can you stand before God when you've knelt on a man? Justice for all? Does that include the black man? National cognitive dissonance. And it's easy to say be patient and be diligent, but this nation has a true case of impotence, and you can't get life up when you keep cutting life down. Hands behind back, face to the ground. Belligerence, ignorance, carnivores. Everyone wants to know why the anger. Honey, how can you shed real tears for a stranger? Because you've got to understand that I love a black boy And every time that I bid him adieu, I understand that his life is in danger. Full body weight on a body weightless, and you still question his innocence. National cognitive dissonance. National cognitive dissonance. And it's easy to say be patient and be diligent. But this nation has a true case of impotence, and it can't get it up when you keep cutting life down. You can't get it up when you keep cutting life down. And you can't unsee what you saw. And you can't unsee what you see. And you can't reach and stop murder on the TV. National cognitive dissonance. A true case of America's impotence. And you keep cutting the black man down. And you ask me why I am around, because I am a poet and I'm going to raise the sound. And you can't reach through the phone or through the TV and stop it. And you can't stop the brutality, the pure insanity. You can't stop it. You can't stop it, and you want to stop it. And you can't end this feeling of hopelessness and helplessness and breathlessness, because I can't reach through the TV screen and stop it. And I can't administer CPR. True feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, watching a man experiencing breathlessness. And there's nothing that I can do about it. If he can't breathe, then we can't breathe. And if we can't breathe, then I can't breathe. But for those who have breath left, what are you going to do with your revolutionary breath? What are you going to do with the revolution in your breath? Because if he can't breathe, then I can't breathe. And we can't breathe. How many of us will there be left? What are you doing with your revolutionary breath? What are you doing with your revolutionary breath? There's revolution in your breath. Breathe.
Yeah. So let's get back to the piece Revolutionary Breath. Let me pose that question to anyone who's bold enough to unmute themselves. The question is, number one, how are you using the revolution in your own breath? Second, what does it mean to have a revolutionary breath? What does it mean to have revolution in your breath? And how are you, and I see a lot of young people on the line, how are you using that revolution? We weren't born, the most of us, all of us on this line looks like, we weren't born during the Harlem Renaissance. Some of us, we were not born during the civil rights movement. So we didn't have the opportunity to march on Washington, as the piece said. But if you look at the scenery in that neighborhood that I use, that is East Cleveland. That's where I live. So I didn't make that up. That's what it looks like right now. That's what I go home to every day. So there was a twofold piece in that. It was the dilapidation of an African-American community that changes in parts because of gentrification. You can't afford to live in that part, trust me. But then there was the pain of seeing Black men killed, and you're watching it in real time on television. That's a whole lot of pain. At the same time, to want to have revolution and do something about it. What are you doing with revolution, and do you even have it? That's the question. Somebody be bold enough to open your mic and answer.
Honey, if I can add a little context for everybody just about our hometown.
Please.
I guess I have a little bit of tears in my eyes to look at the state of the city that raised me, the city where I was born. What you don't know, or what you may not understand, is that area where I grew up, where we were raised, was Rockefeller's Millionaire Row.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not always what you see. On every corner growing up in the 70s, I walked past a Black-owned business, a Black-owned store. On every corner walking to school every morning, I walked past my neighbors who saw me as an extension of their family. I grew up in the same house that my mother and her siblings grew up in, my grandparents' home. And so to provide context to the dilapidated city that you now see, For me, as Honey said, this is personal because what you see has not always been. And a part of it is because a lot of us have turned a deaf ear and a lot of us have turned a blind eye.
And that goes beyond Cleveland, Ohio. So I want you to stop, or East Cleveland, Ohio, the poorest city in the state of Ohio. And you see that dilapidation every single day. I do. And people ask me, why don't you just leave? I am trying to have revolutionary solutions while I still have breath, so that I leave to my nieces and I leave to my nephews. I leave to this next generation that I tried. So all I want to do, I want to try. So I want you to put that in context of your own community and your own state and or your own personhood, and be bold enough to answer that question. What's the revolution in your breath? How do you use it? That's anyone on the floor. I pose it to you.
So I guess I can start or go just a little add to
Thank you.
this. Um, I feel like growing up in El Paso, I've been in this bubble. I don't see all that racial injustice as much as I'm sure you guys have seen. And for me, being able to just educate myself and not turn my blind eye and, you know, being known, marching, and I know we have social media now, and that's a big part of like being out there, making myself or having myself my own voice, you know. But I really feel like educating myself about these things and putting myself in a position for me to help others, advocate for others, and be there for others. I guess that's kind of how I would use mine as educating myself. I'm really into school, and I plan to hopefully get into law school and things like that, and just to be there for people who can't be there for themselves at times.
Thank you. And your voice and your revolution, they are those steps that I mentioned. So your community and your environment may look different than mine. Like our skin tones may be different, our races may be different, our genders may be different. We all have a play and a part in the solution. So I'm not saying because your environment doesn't look like the environment in East Cleveland that your role in the revolution is any less. You have a part in the revolution as a law student. You have a part in the revolution as a third year master's marketing student. I forgot her name, who I met earlier when I got on the call, who's part of the executive team. All of that, you have a part in the revolution. So it doesn't have to be, there she is, Rain. You don't, it doesn't have to be the same, but you have a part in it. And it's your duty and responsibility to own whatever that part is. Greg, I saw you reaching for your mic earlier. I don't know where he was. I thought, um, was it Greg Broadwater or was it another Greg? Greg Broadwater. It's good to see you, sir. People you haven't seen in years. Pop on a Zoom. What the heck? Unmute yourself. And he's gone. But if there was anyone else before I move on to the next piece, this is your opportunity to share briefly.
Mr. Lewis has his hand up.
Hey, I'm Brooks. I live in Las Cruces. I'm an old white man and I ain't going to shut up. I was there for the marches. I was there for the civil rights movement.
Where are you?
I was there for the women's movement. I was there. I was on the street. Now I'm not on the street. I'm in a house and I'm in Las Cruces, but I'm not going to shut up. Every time I talk to a white person, I remind them that we live in a world where the white people think they are in charge of it all. And that is just not right. And I am not going to shut up.
Don't shut up.
On my writing, I'm going to keep on my reading. I'm going to keep on my raising my fist, raising my hand in public and say, I'm an old white man and I'm tired of this too.
Come on now. You're messing me up now. And I try my best. I promise myself. And it's people like you, sir, not shutting up that makes me believe that solution is possible. That makes me believe everyone owning the revolution and part of the revolutionary process is people like you who say, I'm not going to shut up, that I'm going to keep writing It's people like you. And that's why I said you don't have to look like me. Our environments don't have to be the same. You just have to be committed to some part of the solution. So those, like I said, who came for a poetic show or entertainment, that's not who I am. I authentically look for solutions. My platform just happens to be poetry. So when you say I'm an old white man who won't shut up, that's what I'm here to say. I'm a young black girl and I won't shut up either. So guess what? You and I, we're the same. Don't we look like twins? Don't he and I look like twins? To me, we do. He says, I won't shut up. I say, I won't shut up. We are twinning. So, old white man, young black girl, we twinning and together we're winning. I'm with it. Thank you. Thank you. That's what it's about right there. That gives me hope that a solution. You saying what you said tonight is the reason why I've been so excited to come up. If we end it right on your comment alone, I would say tonight is a success. Beyond me reading another poem right there. When this is over and I replay the recording, it's probably what I'm going to record because it gives me nothing but hope. So thank you very much for sharing that. If there's not another comment, I'm going to move on to the next piece. Is that okay? Broadwater, I see your hand.
Hi, Miss Honey. To answer
Okay.
the question, hello everybody. Glad that I saw the post you made on Instagram so that I could be a part of this, what I hope is meaningful and impactful conversation tonight. I think that a quote that I came across recently by Angela Davis best helps answer like what is a revolutionary voice. Um, and it goes, I believe, I'm no longer accepting the things that I cannot change. I'm changing the things that I cannot accept. And um, I think that in terms of my own journey with finding and using my revolutionary voice, I think that it first came from a recognition that I hadn't been. I hadn't been using the revolutionary voice that I have or the knowledge that I've obtained over my life that would allow me to most effectively use it. And I think that I first had to look inward and start changing the things that I couldn't accept about myself, the vessel which produces my revolutionary. And now that that process is nearing at least completion in this particular stage, I think that using that voice and giving more people an opportunity to hear that voice is the best way for revolutionary voice to be my
Mr. Broadwater, we can't hear you.
how much God
It's better, Greg.
hear
But it's a
me?
little. No, that's it right there. Right there.
Okay.
Hey, yes.
I think. Okay. Did you hear anything about the Angela Davis quote that I mentioned?
Angela Davis, just a piece, but if you can repeat it just briefly.
In short, I was saying that I think to answer the question of how or what a revolutionary voice is, I think that one of her quotes best explains it, in which she says, I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things that I cannot accept. And I think that in terms of my own revolutionary voice, I haven't used it as much as I would like. And I think part of my journey has been recently has been changing the things that I couldn't accept about myself internally and my thought patterns, some of my behaviors and habits, which will enable me to better get into a space where I'm more comfortable allowing more people to hear the things that my revolutionary voice has to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about right there. If I may, and I don't think that he would mind me saying that. Greg probably is an example of the word that we use in youth development, and that's called resiliency. Greg is a product of what I talk about when I talk about those neighborhoods that I saw. Greg, may I tell just a piece of you? I think he's saying, okay.
Go right ahead. Yep, go right ahead.
How old were you when I met you, sir?
I was second half of my senior year in high school, so 17.
So how old are you now?
25.
When you talk about a young man that saw many of the ills that I talk about in my poetry, from broken home to foster home to just stuff that no one should see at a young age. And then, despite that, joining this poetry group and traveling through the power of poetry with me all over this country to just use that pain and that brokenness and still get accepted into the Notre Dame College. And without me even expecting to see him on this line now, saying, I'm not going to take my brokenness, I'm not going to take my mother's death and let it break me. What I'm going to do is go back to Cleveland, find my siblings, and get in custody of all of them. Where do they do that? You talking about your revolutionary breath? You essentially become a brother father as a young man. You don't take your, am I right, Greg? And I've never said it to you, but since we're on this line and you're here, let me go ahead and say it. I am proud of you, sir, that you've taken the brokenness and those pains. And he's like, don't do it to me, Miss Honey. I'm going to do it. You got on the line. You know, I haven't seen you, so I'm going to do it. That's poetry. That's revolution. It will never be a show for me. It is you popping on this line right now. I'm not seeing you pop on anything else I've done. So New Mexico University, y'all got some power. People haven't seen Kim York. You got some power. When I see
guess
that.
something told me to go on Instagram and see the post you made about it. So here I am.
And so I'm excited to have you. This is called Lost and Found. Every little Black girl needs to take a trip to the Lost and Found. Go find it. Every little Black girl needs to look through boxes marked rejected, abandoned, promiscuous. And if she's too strong, she needs to look through the box marked arrogant or witch, pronounced with a B. Y'all get that? All that weave and all those naps, those locks, she needs to look through the box marked hair. She needs to search light skin, dark skin. She needs to look through the box marked fair. She needs to look through the box marked big lips and hips that drop with ease. And you see them searching for Sarah Bartman with the drop of their eyes. Every little Black girl needs to remind herself that she is the prize. Every little Black girl needs to search through the remnants of what another little Black girl left for her. Every little Black girl needs to look for the boxes and find her some her. She needs to look through the ballad of Sonia Sanchez. She needs to allow her ego to trip all the way with Nikki Giovanni. She needs to assure Ntezake Shange that she is not considering suicide because the rainbow is enough. She is not considering suicide because the rainbow is enough. She needs to dance to the Renaissance and find Zora Neale with her eyes still watching God. She needs to find Maya Angelou and let her whisper in her ears, still our eyes. And when you feel broken, you are still a phenomenal woman, even with their bitter, twisted lies. Every little Black girl needs to take a trip to the lost and found, and they're singing and chanting will be Nina Simone. And she'll tell every little Black girl that you are the fifth woman in the song. And she'll invite you to find Aunt Sarah and Sophronia and Sweet Thing and Peaches. And she'll tell you that these are the stories that only the living teaches. Every little Black girl who's ever stumbled along their way, she needs to find a trip to the lost and found and take a trip there. And when she finds it, she needs to leave a path for another Black girl. And then when she finds it, she'll leave a path for another Black girl. And then when she finds it, she'll leave a path for another Black girl. And then she'll leave a path for another Black girl. And then she'll leave a path for another Black girl. And then she'll leave a path for another Black girl, lost and found. If in that piece, Lost and Found, well, thank you. What I challenge you, if there's any name in that poem that you do not know, I challenge you to go and research that. If I said Sophronia and you're like, who was that? If I said Nina Simone and you didn't know who that was, go and find it. Nikki Giovanni, Ntezake Shange, Sonia Sanchez. If I said any name, Sarah Bartman, the pain of her. I walk around every day, I'm Sarah Bartman. To live through that pain, if I said any name that you did not know, your challenge tonight is to research that. Are there any comments on that piece that anyone have some comments or questions? I know in between these pieces, it's what I want to do. I don't want to entertain. I want to have dialogue with you. So is there any comment on lost and found? Or better stated, how do you leave something that lost and found for someone else? How do you leave that path? Every morning I wake up, I don't wake up just being honey. People left this path for me. I'm the first person and first of my siblings to graduate high school, the only. So what that means is that the charge is I'm the first to go to college, the only. That means that somebody along the way left that kind of path for me. So I've dedicated my life to make sure I leave that path for somebody else. It's what I have to do. Is my charge. How do you do the same thing? That's the question. I only need one person bold enough to answer, but I need one person. Before we go on to the next piece, I need one person. How you lead that path?
So I would just like to say, sorry, feedback issue. So
Okay.
I just like to say my path, at least that's been crafted for me, was crafted by strong Black women who were beaten, berated, and didn't have right here, Ignacio, and didn't have a chance in their life. And, for my path that I wish to help carve out for other people. Sorry, I'm so emotional right now. This has been a roller coaster for me. I was expecting to get emotional and get ready to cry. But, for me, in terms of my found, I would just love to, make way and assist children because, in my childhood, what's really helped find my path was growing up and having a lot of trauma shape me and craft who I was. One of my close family friends was recently killed and left on the side of the road to die. So stuff like that has really shaped me and really encouraged me to go about and help find path for other people so they don't have to go through that kind of trauma.
Ashe, thank you. Thank you. The one with the super dope hair. Thank you. Thank you. And for being comfortable sharing. I'm going to mention this only because I'm glad you have this recording, but I'm going to go ahead and mention this, Kim, and I know no one on the Cleveland line knows this yet, but I just completed a project that I worked on all last year. All last year, I worked on this project called POT, and it is Power Over Emotional Trauma. And when he talked about his trauma, it made me remember they just came in the mail maybe a week ago now. I'm not taking the plastic off at all because I wanted this night to be the first CDs that I send out will be to Kim. So all of you who are on this line, this is your gift tonight. So it is before I even put them on any system to sell. They are free of charge to everyone on this line. And I will be sending that to you, Kim, just as my appreciation to have this time of healing and sharing. And even my friends who are here tonight, they know nothing about this project. They've not seen it. So you are the first ones, and I have saved that tonight to be able to ship that out to you tomorrow. And you guys can figure out how it gets to you, but it is a piece that I hold very sacred. So much so it took me a whole year to produce it. So very personal pieces about trauma, sexual healing is in here. Sexual assault is in here. Pain of community brokenness is in here. Racial divide, it's in here. With the jazz tone and understatement, it's in here. With the, I spit it for real, and when I spit fire. Looking to God Almighty, the only one to take me higher. Heal my every desire, have me. So you're talking about rap and hip hop, it's in here. It's all in here. And so I'm very proud of that project. And when he mentioned trauma, that made me think about that. So that's coming in the mail as my gift to all of you. And I'll make sure I ship those out tomorrow. Kim will give me those. And the Clevelanders. I see. Beverly, what city are you in now? Good to see you, my love. Virginia? No. Yes, I think so.
Yes, I am in Virginia.
It is good. Hey, Beverly.
Hey, how you doing? It is so good to see everybody and to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're absolutely welcome. So I'll make sure I get yours out to you. I'll just inbox me your address and I'll ship it to you.
Okay, shall do.
The Clevelanders who are in Cleveland, most of you I see at some point. So I'll make sure I get yours to you too. All right. This next piece is called Black Votes Matter. And it's just simply my opinion about voting. So it's 2020. And if you're looking for a reason to vote, let me tell you all where I went. I went over to Minneapolis to ask George Floyd, but he was gone. Knee to the throat. It's okay. That's all right. I'm going to go over to Kentucky for Breonna. Hey, Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. After all, she's a medic. But her vote was shot down in her sleep. Now that's pathetic. Black votes matter. Black votes matter. Oh, this is genetic. For me, it's more than rhetoric. She told me to vote for her. This type of greatness, unapologetic. Oh, you still need a reason to vote? You still need a reason to vote? If your vote didn't matter, then why would they try so very hard to suppress it? I jogged to the polls for Ahmaud Arbery, vote to confess it. Still for Sandra Bland, I vote to arrest it. For A. Tatiana Jefferson, I vote to confess it. My vote is unapologetic. I'm a poet, but I'm not trying to be poetic. I vote for just us. This is our Montgomery bus boycott. This is our Pettus Bridge. On the backs of slavery, on the backs of Reconstruction, Jim Crow, the Mayflower, voting is my right. And I will not drop the ball and still try to sleep at night. We got next. They've always tossed us the ball. It's fourth quarter. And this is our vote, and this is not a partisan call. If you're honest with yourself, equity and equality are on this ballot marked disaster. See, I'm pregnant with a voice, and there is no morning after. It's time to push. Black votes matter. Black votes matter. All in participation, brown children separated from parents. Oh, this is time for liberation. Brown children separated from parents. Oh, this is time for liberation. My vote is an advance on my past due reparations. See, the greatest pandemic in 2020 has nothing to do with fever or losing taste. This pandemic of hatred is all about race. See, the greatest pandemic to hit 2020 has nothing to do with fever, COVID, losing taste. The real pandemic is this hatred, and it's all about race. What are we going to do with this real pandemic at hand? That's the question. Are we powerless against this real pandemic at hand? Whew. And some people are like, oh, these questions in between. That's what it's about, this thought process. What do we do? Well, let me throw another, and I see people, when you unmute your camera, that means you're ready. You unmute your camera, Tim, I'm ready for you.
Hi, hey, I really appreciate your poetry, and I listened to your poem, and I thought I think that we're gonna have to birth something new. I picked up when you said push, and I think that there's gonna have to be some great new life form like that you describe in your poem in order for us to achieve this forward movement that we need to have. And as the white gentleman was talking about earlier, I think that the whites do have to continue to be allies and talk about all this horrible stuff, as your poems just mentioned, one reference after another to all the bad things that have happened to Blacks in our country. And I think it's important for the white writers too. I wonder, it doesn't have the same. I have a question for you, I guess. Like you do a great job of listing all those those people that are real powerful to say their name. Like Ahmaud Arbery, for example. When a white writer says those names, do you feel like it has the same power, or in your opinion, like should they be more talking about their side of it and just sort of the white supremacy side, or I don't know. Is it a white person's name to say?
Oh, Tim. Yeah. Whew. That's so powerful. That's so powerful. Let me tell you this from my heart, and I don't speak for all African Americans, but when you say Ahmad Aubrey, when you say, hey Tatiana, when you say these names, to me, it's more powerful than you if you talked about white supremacy, because what it says to me is that you understand my struggle. That you, for me, you're asking if it's valid for you to say it. Yes. I'm asking you, please don't let it just be my voice. Own it too. To me, it is not offensive. It is not, um, it is the greatest sign that they are allies in the struggle and you understand. To me, it is. When I talk about, I'm just going to use one of the greatest injustices in history. When I talk about the Holocaust as a person from a different race, to me is so valid because it's saying I own this struggle too. I represent it too. Oh man, I don't disregard it. I don't lower it. So for me, for you to say those names, absolutely, you have that right. I pray that you do. And I will tell this brief story. Please, that was powerful, even for you to ask the question. That is so culturally sensitive. If I can transfer that to any workshop that I do on cultural sensitivity, that is the perfect example. The mere fact that you care enough to ask, whoa, that you care enough to even think on that level, that is the progress of the revolution that I'm talking about right there. That's I don't know what's up with you all. Um, what y'all got? What's in the water there in New Mexico? But I need these examples to be relevant here in Cleveland. That's the prime. So please, sir, absolutely. The closest example, and I don't know if there's anybody else, if there's anyone else who has a question on that, please feel free to share. If not, I want to share an example if that's okay. The most powerful example, and as you all share, what you do is spark the stories of truth for me. The most powerful example of this type of healing for me, I was in a room, and before any sacred circle that I'm in, I pray. Most times I'm nervous. And the person in the room today with me, the young man, was I nervous today? He said, show us about just being with you all to make sure the experience was authentic and real and not just a poetry reading, because that's not who I am. That's not what I do. Either I can bring to the relevance the time and the participants who are in it, or I don't deserve to own this mic. And I want to always be cognizant of that. So in this circle that I was invited to do, I was nervous and I prayed for 2 days. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I wanted to be able to help the people who were in the circle. In this room, it was private. So it wasn't like the room that we're in today and it's open. It was not open to the public. There were only about 25 invited guests. There was a person playing the singing bowls in the room. And then there was a healing poet. I like a healing poet. I just write poetry. And then when I got there, when I arrived, they told me who was in the room. I was like, I already knew when you said healing poetry that this was going to be rough for me. Let me tell you who was in the room. The mother of Mike Brown was in the room. The mother of Sandra Bland was in the room. The mother of Tamir Rice was in the room. The mother of, and the list goes on and on. Only mothers of sons who have been killed unarmed by the police was in the room. And they're asking this little poet from East Cleveland, Ohio, to say something that's going to be able to heal their spirit. And they're all in a circle. And I don't know who's who. I don't know who's who. And probably one of the most powerful things that's ever happened to me as a poet. I do the poem in the circle. And the one mother grabs me and she whispers and let me know who she is. And she says, no one before this night has ever given me permission to cry. And I want to cry. And she's holding me and I'm holding her in this hotel ballroom. And in the circle, it's only mothers who's lost their son. You talk about the power of poetry, the revolution of poetry. And I had on a white garment that I bought just for that event that I've never worn again since that night. And I allow her tears to just drip all through. They soaked through my clothes. Her makeup soaked down through my clothes. And I'm holding her and I'm still reciting the poetry. And she said, I am the only one in this room who lost their daughter. Sandra Bland was my daughter. What do you do with that when you talk about the power of poetry? When you talk about the power of poetry, what do you do with all of these mothers who have the responsibility to try to heal themselves when they've lost their sons, and in her case, their daughter, and this poet is whispering in her ear, you will heal and you will live for the sake of your daughter's legacy. There is life still in you. You are more than this grief that wants to overcome you. There's life in you. And the poetry comes. In that moment, the poetry comes. And the more the poetry comes, the more this woman, this mother cries in my arms. That is the most, if you talk about out of body experience I have ever had in my life as a poet. I wasn't paid to help heal them. In fact, I ended up sewing into one of the mothers' lives because she wanted to start a ministry. That's what poetry is about. That's the revolution of poetry. And when I leave this earth, that's what I would hope I take with me, moments like that, where there's revolution in that. And I'm not afraid of that, but my work is to try to heal, is to try to heal women, is to try to heal children, to try to heal people. Is there anyone that story alone just moves you? The notion that you can have all of these women in one room who's lost sons, most of them. When I looked at Mike Brown's mother, like, what do you say to that? When your son is shot, and I have him in many of my poems, what do you say to the mother of your 12-year-old was shot and he was playing in a park with a toy gun? What do I say to you to still give you hope? That's the realness of the power of this poet and what I try to do when it kind of rains in my vein. So this next piece, everybody all right? Can I do a check-in? Is everybody okay? Okay, so I see some people, and I'm sorry to take you on this emotional roller coaster, but I'm going to change directions. We're okay. So this piece, this is a call and response. And I may call Bree.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Bree. Bree, are you a poet?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I know that. Do you have and you're like, how do I know? How do you know that? You've never seen me. You're just a poet. I know it. You're a poet and I know it. So Bree, do you have anything poetic that you'd like to share?
Not necessarily like a finished poem, but what you've been talking about kind of made me think of a few things, in one of your previous poems. And I know I jumped in kind of late, and there was a part where you mentioned the word suicide a few times. And, and then as I continue listening to some of your other pieces, and now just this story as you sat with those grieving mothers, who are, discovering new ways to continue their journey with the loss of a child, it kind of made me think of a few things. Like there seems to be, in Black culture, obviously there's a shared grief in all of us, but also kind of like a sense of life and death, not necessarily in a literal sense, but like each time you go through a tragedy, trauma, whether it results in a fatality or not, it's like you're coming up like a phoenix, like from the ashes, trying to figure out how to live again. But you know what that made me think of, your experiences with those mothers. I feel it reminded me kind of a time, there was a time where I had attempted suicide, and to be able to, and one thing I thought I would never be able to understand is how my mother would have felt had I passed away that day. But there's a certain kind of power that comes from that kind of pain. And I remember, I was actually not pronounced dead, but it was like the doctors were just kind of like, she's in a coma, but we're like really shocked that she's breathing on her own. She's living on her own. And I remember being so out of it that I could actually see that my mom had already thought I was gone. So I felt like now that I was given a second chance, recognizing the power and what it feels like to almost have been gone, but to still be here, and then recognizing what pain, but what also power comes from losing a child or almost losing a child due to something so serious as race, But I would just applaud you. I mean, that the stories you're sharing and the poetic pieces that you just, graced upon us just now, it really like touched my heart. But that's all I wanted to say. I'm new to this group. I'm from New Mexico, but I'm just like, oh, I didn't know this. You could do this with Zoom. But that's all. Thank you, though.
So let me say this to you, and before I move on to the next piece, I'm so grateful to God that all of your attempts your attempt, your suicidal place, that it never worked. Because if it did, you would not be in this space adding to this environment right now. How would I know, all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, that you are a poet? How would I know that you have something to say to this conversation? I've never met you. I don't know if Kim has ever met you, but I had no discussion with anyone about the people on this line. You just exude who you are. The life, the essence, I just see that from you. So when I tell the audience and the group, you are not considering suicide. Remind the words of Ntezake Shange that you would not consider suicide because your personal rainbow is enough. Those who've never read that piece, it is enough. For those who've ever walked down the halls of suicide and wonder if life is enough, I would never be the poet laureate that I am right now if any of my attempts and my thought, because a foster mother didn't want me. If I had let that be enough, I would not be the me that I am right now. But I'm not considering suicide because my rainbow is enough. And so thank you for being free enough to share that. But the life and the beauty of whatever you're going to produce in New Mexico and for the world, it's just, I'm sorry, for those who are like, what kind of poetry this is? It's just who it exudes through you. And so I thank you for being free enough to share. Okay, changing channels again. This is a piece that I'd like everyone to share in. This is a call and response piece. So I don't care who you are. I need you to unmute your mics because this is a piece that we are going to do together. This is called A Queen's, and I don't mean to take us on this roller coaster. See, some people wiping their eyes, but so we're gonna have a little fun with this piece. I'm gonna change the tempo a little bit. This piece is called A Queen's Roll Call. So if you are a man, your words are going to be king's present. Let's try that. When I say queen's roll call, if you are a woman, you're going to say queen's present. If you are a man, you're going to say king's present. This is a roll call. I simply want to see who's in the room. This is a practice. This is a practice one. This is a queen's roll call.
Queen's present.
Queen's present.
New Mexico, I'm trusting you all. You're gonna have to give me a little more jam than that. I don't want to get off of here and talk about you too bad. Let's try the men. I just want to hear from the men right now. This is a queen's roll call.
Queen's
Present.
Look, and y'all said it with some yeah. This is a queen's roll call.
Queen's present.
Okay, you ready? I'm gonna have to get up. I might have to get up for this one with you all. See, it's easy to determine a queen because she comes with her own grown and sexy appeal. See, a queen can walk in flats or she can rock 6-inch stiletto heels. See, she can show up beatless or she can rock a triple beat on her face. She's already a queen because she owns and commands her own race. And she never needs to put another sister down just to keep pace. See, it really doesn't matter if she's skinny or curved with heavy. A queen tells herself, oh, I woke up sexy. Oh, I woke up ready. And she inhales ready as she exhales BS. She's queen superwoman and there's a Q on her chest. And Maya Angelou said that it was in the swing of her waist and the rise of her breasts. This is a queen's roll call.
Queen's
present.
See, because I'm bad to the bone and I know it. As long as I have breath in my body, oh, I intend to show it. So to every woman in here, you already wear the crown. You vanilla, you mocha, you double dip chocolate brown. See, I'm sexy and I'm grown. I tell myself that I'm bad to the bone. I'm queen of my own throne. And this crown I own. Oh, this is a queen's roll call.
Queen's present.
And see, let me explain it to you. I qualify for this crown because I already wrote the protocol. You can't put me up because I'm way too up to fall. Grown and determined points to a particular body type. If we listen to the hater, you might be tricked into the hype. It's impossible for me to dip in hate-filled waters and drown, because while I wear it, I also straighten another sister's crown. See, I'm 100% confident, and I don't want to offend anybody with these lines, so brace yourself. Hold on to your seat. Hold on to your seat. I'm 100% confident that I'm all that. You can call it big booty, black and fat, but guess what? I am still 100% all of that. I am. And another person's opinion won't upset the reality of that fact. I'm a real queen, and no need to upset that fact, and no need to smile in your face and stab you in the back. And if you get done with me, win or lose, you go home with 90 pennies, because I am the dime. I am the rhythm to my own rhyme. And it's not arrogance, it's in my bloodline. Take that up with Sojourner Truth. Take that up with Maya Angelou. Take it up with Shirley Chisholm. I was born with that much determination in my rhythm. So to every queen or king out there, this is a queen's roll call.
Queen present.
Straighten her crown. Straighten her crown. And while you're at it, don't step on another woman or man with the words that you spew. Oh, she thinks she all that. Oh, yes, I do. And since you brought it up, you must think it too. See, it's impossible to be a queen and let another sister drown. You wear yours, but you straighten another queen's crown. This has been a queen's roll call.
Queen's
presence.
This has been a queen's roll call.
Queen's presence.
Okay, so let's unpack that piece. What's the major theme in that piece? How do you identify with that piece? And that's different from the revolutionary pieces that we talked about. This one stands in its own category. And I purposely threw that one in there. Any brave person want to take a guess?
I'll go. If you can you hear me?
I hear you, Bree, I do.
The first word that came to mind was pride. That whole piece, I just kept hearing in my head, pride, pride, pride. You know, pride for those who came before us, pride for those who are walking beside us, pride for our own accomplishments, you know, our own presence, you know, our own queenhood, and then pride for those that we're going to bring up, you know, or who are struggling, you know, or who might help me while I'm struggling. Just pride and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else?
Pride, resilience.
Carol?
Yes. Again, I agree with her. Definitely the pride, the resilience, being able to hang in there. And then the whole thing about helping the next person, helping the next person. We're not alone, and supporting each other through that struggle.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a two, Kim?
I was going to say one of the things that kind of sticks out for me is the importance of identity sensitivities.
Yes.
And so making sure that we are not unintentionally ascribing identities to people who may not conform to male or female. So that's what stuck out for me.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because the whole intentionality, and I mentioned some strong language in certain parts of that intentionally. I intentionally mentioned words like sexy. I intentionally mentioned words like body type. So that means whoever you are, to not let another human being define that for you. To be able to step and walk in those shoes, if they're stilettos, if they're fat, if they're flats, if you have on makeup, if you're transgender, if you are from the LGBTQIA community, if you're Black, if you're Hispanic, if you're whoever you are, to own that and say, I'm present. whatever that is. And if there's a call, for example, when I ask for a queen or a king roll call, and someone would say, I don't identify with either one, then put who you identify in and step forward and be completely all of that. I said that I'm completely all of that. Whatever negative darts are thrown to me, I'll take most of them because most of them are true. You are black, true. You are fat, true. You are ugly. Now, wait a minute. Now, you took that to that is not, there's no truth in that. But whoever I am in this world, for sharing that part. You're so right. The piece is about ownership of you and being okay with that you and the pain of not allowing someone else to define you. If I lived in a world where I had to allow someone else to define me, I could never fit in those shoes. I don't care who you try to make me, what you try to say I could be, should be, need to be, was born to be. I own my identity, period. End of discussion.
That's self-efficacy.
Who said that?
Girl hit.
Self-efficacy, where are you?
I'm on here. I don't know where you see.
Who are you?
Carol Hicks.
Oh, I see you. I see you. I'm sorry. There are a lot of you, so I have to move between the two screens. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's also about that self-efficacy, like you say. What do you yourself and how you present yourself?
Absolutely. And the waters of who someone else might want you to be, they're so deep, I just can't swim in them. I cannot live a lifetime trying to swim in somebody else's definition of me. I drown. What you expect the Black woman to be, you can't define my identity. You can't define my poetry. You can't define my spirituality, my sexuality. You can't define it because you're not walking in my skin. You don't know what it took for me to be me. And I'm telling you, at this point in life, there's no way that I would ever allow someone else to define me. Whatever pain, whatever licks so I have to take to be defined, I'm going to do that for myself. This next piece, before I introduce a young man who's here at the set with me, and we do have time, I'm very cognizant of your time, but I'm going to read this at least last piece unless we have more time. And then I'm going to introduce him. Is that okay? I'm doing a check of the room. Okay. This piece is called, and is right on time with what we have been talking about with that last piece. They lead seamlessly right into each other. And it is a piece about self-hatred a little bit. It's a piece about letting go of some of that. And it's a piece about coming to own every bit of me. And I own that me out front, and I own the tears that it took behind the scene to become that me. So yeah, I walk in this skin proudly. I do. Every single inch, every single pound of her. If she never lose a pound, I own every bit of it. This melanin, and nothing I can do about it. I love it. It's who I am. So I own that too. I own this curly, crinkly hair. I own that too. I own my nose. I own my lips. I own my Sarah Bartman. I own every part of me. It's me. I rest my case. It's really way past time that we come up with some type of mantra, some type of contractual agreement. See, there's got to be a way that you do somebody that you love, or some process at least where you can file a grievance against someone that you love. Hey, wait a minute. Can I file a grievance on self? Can I tell the judge that it was me who was stealing my own spiritual wealth? Can I really file a grievance on me? If I could, it would go a little something like this. Your Honor, I have failed to give honor to this here, your queen, your Honor. I have tried to intoxicate Your Honor, over the things that harmed her, Your Honor. See, she's tried to ignore some of the things that she's seen or not seen, Your Honor. And since I'm talking about self, I'm not suggesting that you throw the book, but I'm speaking on her behalf. And finally, she's taken a thorough look. She's tried, don't want to fight no more when she tried to drink over it. Don't want to fight no more when she tried to intoxicate over it. Don't want to make herself last. Can't love self while looking at a hated past. See, she's tried to fuel it with food and tried to fuel it with the food. Even my own punishment was unusual and cruel. Your Honor, see, this might be a little non-traditional, but it's mandatory to my destiny that I complete this ritual. See, I'm arresting self. I'm arresting me because I'm already connected to the jailer, but he made me free. That means that I hold the key, Your Honor. This queen is guilty of not loving me, Your Honor. See, this queen is guilty of not loving me. This queen is not giving honor, Your Honor. So my deposition needs to look a little something like this. The self-hatred and my destiny, they can't coexist. See, I'm in some type of spiritual warfare and I'm struggling to exist. Will gladly enlist the one who did persist, joining the enemy lines, but is finally way past time. There will be no queen left behind. Yeah, I know she's guilty as charged of the spiritual disregard, the reckless dishonor of God's chosen daughter, and she purposely dishonors letting go of the victim mentality and getting some real peace and solace. In case there's any real question of my guilt, I'd like to submit into evidence. Exhibit A. I have the power, but in trouble, did not fast and would not pray. Exhibit B. She went days with no food, worry, no sleep. Exhibit C. I dated an abuser with no capacity to love me. Exhibit D. I dined with depression and made a cozy pallet within me. Exhibit E. Days she didn't eat, body thinking it was starving me. Exhibit F. Introvert, putting real friendships to the test. Exhibit G. Guilty. Your Honor, before I rest my case, before the defense rests, before the plaintiff rests, before I rest my case, I'm asking you to please arrest this case and arrest this very place, because there's no present and there's no past and there's no prison for the person who makes the choice to be free. And there's no way in hell that I'm going to live another day not loving me. See, there's no prison for the person who makes the choice to be free. And there's no way in hell that I'm going to live another day not loving me. I rest my case. I am so happy to see that you all are completely with me, because it's easy. Listen, and this is just some transparency here before I introduce this young man. And then depending on what, I don't know what he's going to share, depending on what he does, I'll come back and read my final piece, cognizant of the time. Listen, anyone can get up and talk about revolutionary power and poetry as a tool and weapon for social justice. But I would tell you this, especially those on the line who are under 30. This is a message, especially for those who are 30 and under. If you don't arrest the social justice within yourself, you don't have justice and balance for who you are, all you'll do is enter this vicious cycle that will keep going and going and going, the trauma of it, until you address you. So I made sure tonight, and I'm glad the pieces that I either wrote specifically for tonight or were called to do tonight were right in line with where some of you said that you were with your own trauma. I can be on the battlefields fighting for poetry and justice all I want, but if I don't address me and be whole and happy and complete and satisfied and safe and loving and secure with me, then all I'm doing is being this wounded, bleeding soldier who's bleeding on the people I try to serve. And I didn't want to be that person. So I am a poet with the story and with life. And let me tell you this final story that fuels me. And then I will turn it over. And this is a story I don't tell, and it's not going to be in my bio. So you won't read my bio and get this. I have no poem about this, not a single poem. Those who know me, like Dr. Buddy on the line, those who know me, you know my pain and you know my stories. So you know this, but this is not something I talk about. We just had a major death in Cleveland, and it wasn't talked about much, and I'm glad it wasn't. But it was a death of a man named Anthony Sowell. And Anthony Sowell, he was a mass murderer in this city. He killed, I believe, 11, was it 11? 11 women and buried them in his home. This is not a story. This is not made for TV. This is the community I live in. No one looked for 11 women. How do you have 11 missing women in the same small community and no one, these women were not missing and looking for, they were forgotten. No one looked for these 11 women. This murderer, this man, he just died a few days ago. Was justice served when he died? Not to me, because he died of natural causes in prison. It's not justice for 11 women that you killed. Let me tell you how that story relates to me. And no one knew this. I would go and do my service with young people. I have a group called La Mariposa with Hispanic girls. And I have a translator who works with me, as most of them speak only Spanish. I have a group, so I have a group every day. I have multiple groups every day of young people, even virtually, doing life skills and cooking. And Dr. Buddy, who's on the line, I cook with his students, right, Dr. Buddy? He's like, don't call me.
Yes, ma'am.
And so Dr. Buddy, who runs a school of about 600 and some kids in the inner city of Cleveland, phenomenal principal. I'm in there doing arts and other projects with him. But in the midst of that, I would go home every single day with a pain and kind of a secret that I didn't tell anybody. No one knew that there was another half of me that was living in these abandoned homes and missing. And I didn't tell anyone. I was just working and serving community. That other half, she was my womb-mate. We were in the womb together, but life has separated things. And she was living in these abandoned homes, some of the same buildings that I showed you all. That's where she was, suffering in her own cocoon of innocent, childlike. And I've never wrote a poem about this, but I feel like I'm writing it right now. So I'm glad we're recording this. I'll go back and listen to it. Stuck in the cocoon of her innocent, childlike ways with parents who had discarded her, discarded me, discarded us. And then she had this servant sister who was going on doing service and saying, well, I'm living my life. Basically, unintentionally, that's what I was saying. And then my students had basically got an invitation to go to Paris. And I had a choice to make. I was either going to leave this town knowing I put my eyes on her once. And she said to me, oh, sister, if you find a lamp, just bring it to me and I'll be okay. In these abandoned homes. In her childlike mind, she just believed, find me a lamp and I'll be okay. But I didn't find the lamp and I didn't find her again for months, maybe a year. And I just left her out there unintentionally, thinking life served me the same bad hand. And then before my kids went to Paris, they were still looking, tell you how the story all relates, for 2 or 3 of the women. They were unidentified. They could not find who they belonged to. And I couldn't find my twin sister, Sugar, Honey and Sugar. I couldn't find her. I was searching abandoned homes after work every day. I could not find her. I was trying to help the world and save kids, but I could not find this other half. And I called at that time her mother in great help, our mother, and asked her, help me find my sister. If you don't help me, I'm going to lose my mind. I have to find her. And she said to me, I was standing outside on Euclid. She said to me, honey, I'm headed on vacation. I need all hands on deck. I can't deal with this. Click. And so I told God in that moment, if I ever find my sister again, I promise you, I won't take eyes off of her. Never. Help me, God. I don't want to go to Paris and with these kids to perform all over Europe about poetry and social justice. And I have a sister living in abandoned homes. Help me. And they could not find the 2 bodies. They could not find the 2 or 3 women who they identified. And so I walked to the morgue. I walked there. I walked to the morgue and told them, I believe one of the missing bodies that Anthony Sowell has killed is my twin sister, Sugar. Can you help me? Probably the most painful thing that I've ever done. And they swabbed my mouth. And I went home trying to see if the DNA matched either one of the women. And the phone call came. The remaining bodies do not belong to your twin sister. And I said, game on. Game on. And as we looked in houses and houses and houses and houses, the night came where I found my twin sister. And by all means necessary, I had custody of her. I went to court, got her medicated, moved her in. There was no skin on her body anywhere. Bed bugs had eaten up every bit of her skin in these abandoned houses. Her eye was closed completely shut. She had not had glasses since childhood, and she believed all of these beliefs like, I don't need this, I don't need to sleep on furniture, I'm going to sleep on floors. Now that same twin sister sleeps in the room right next to me every night. When I go to bed, she goes to bed. And the most important question she asks are questions like, she went from all I need is a lamp and I don't need socks or shoes. She went from that to, honey, you do know that you have not gotten my pedicure this month. What? Honey, you do. How in the world do you go? You do know. Where were you thinking about us going on vacation this year? What? How in the world do we get here? Talk about resiliency. That's resiliency. Talk about what fused the poet. That fused the poet. Thank you all so very much. So this finally, thank you. Thank you so very much for having me. I hope that this was not a waste of your time. I am going to have this young man come on and share. If we have time, I might close with a piece, but we're going to listen. This is a product of the programs that I provide to young men, and I thought it not robbery. No way were we going to have this conversation about the revolution and the power of poetry and me not have an example in the same room. So I'm going to bring, without further ado, Mr. Caillou Allen. Let's give him a hand as he comes.
Hey, man, get your foot off my neck. I said, get your white oppressive foot up off of my neck. Because soon it will be you that I have to deck. All the anguish you've caused my brothers, all the pain you've dealt to their mothers. And now you got the nerve to tell me it's your fault. You take away our fathers to destroy our backbone, playing this low game to dismantle the Black home. I mean, what kind of prejudice-inducing drug are some of these people on? We know your tactics, we know your game. We've seen what you'll do to glorify your so-called name. Look, man, these cats been out here protesting for over 60 years. When we gonna overcome our fears, wipe away these useless tears, and rise up in revolution? Because if I'm gonna be honest with you, I see no other solution. Not when it's the white man beating me down and around. Because when I get tired of the sound of cop cars coming round, I envision brothers and sisters of a vanguard holding it down. Black folks, they just gonna start rising up just because they feel like enough is enough. 400 years of retaliation will bubble up. The strength of Black unity will double up, and they will not publicize so they can keep their trouble up. Ever since Nat Turner got a burner and Huey Newton got to shooting, the white supremacist has been forced to take his foot off the gas to regain control. Well, now his control is old and we getting bold. We know what to do. We don't have to be told. And now the Gestapo pigs is picking us off with killer precision. All I can say is, Whitey, rethink your decision, for the time is long come for a revision of the tactics necessary to end white supremacy. Because if you don't take your foot off of our collective necks, we just gonna stand up anyway. We just gonna stand up anyway.
Come on, young man.
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Caillou Allen. I'm 18 years old. I just turned last month. I attend Morehouse College. I'm a freshman there. I've been in Ms. Honey's group, the Distinguished Gentlemen, for a while, three years now. And it's been just a wonderful experience. You know, Ms. Honey has helped me grow through poetry and spoken word, and I've really come to use it as my voice, as my revolutionary breath, as Ms. Honey says. And let me tell you, words is powerful, you know, and I just feel like if I can get it out on poetry, I can get it out in action, you know,
Yes.
because I believe in action over everything. But you got to start somewhere, and them words travel overseas, over, you know, to Africa, to Asia. They go everywhere, and they're immortal. So they're necessary, you know.
The immortality of words. Come on, brother.
Right on. Because when they see us 400 years from now, they're going to read the words of Miss Honeybell Bay. They're going to read the words of, you know, Martin Luther. They're gonna still be reading these words. So it's very important that we lay the blueprint for the future generations.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Do you want to read one more?
Sure.
Your gentrification piece I find very powerful that you just wrote that I heard last week.
Okay.
That you shared with me. You want to read that?
Yeah. And I can do that. Yeah.
This piece that he wrote, and we live in the same type of communities. Well, I'll let you define your own piece. Go ahead.
Yeah. This is about gentrification. See, I live on the west side of Cleveland, right? Where it's heavily gentrified. It's very, like, it is all us, the poor folks, they moving us out, and they letting, you know, all the rich, you know, people got money. They building these big old grand apartments. And I just had a few words on that. So I'm gonna share this piece called Buildings with you today. A long time ago, I tell myself that those sure are some nice buildings.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before I understood residential racism. And then I found out that the white folks was thinking the same thing I was. But when they said that, they ended up creating a whole lot of buzz. And next thing you know, finally, damn, why the rent done increased by $200? That's way more bread than I can afford to pay. So I guess I'm gonna just have to break my lease and move on away.
Me too.
And since when do white folks want to live in the hood? You think, hell, wouldn't they want to live far away from me? But the truth is, nah, it's them property values that they want to see.
Mm-hmm.
My great-grandmother, she lives on the blackest part of town. And recently, she sighted a white man walking up and down the street. When that man gets the mortgage, signs, and then says, "Yep," I sit out front, sad to see my people packing up. They move farther into the inner city, slum, or ghetto. We can't afford to live no more, so we're just gonna pack up our things and go. You know, in certain circles, they call it gentrification.
Mm-hmm.
But gentrification is a plague ailing our sick nation.
Mm-hmm.
Buildings, those sure are some nice buildings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but think that you can't, it's almost certain you won't.
If you think you'll lose,
you lost.
For out in the world we find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind.
If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You have to be sure of yourself before you can ever win the prize. See, life's battles don't always go to the stronger nor faster man. But sooner or later, the one who wins is the one who thinks he can. Is the one
who thinks he can is the one who thinks he can. Thank you. Right on.
All right.
Thank you, brother.
No problem.
All right, let's give Mr. Caillou Allen a hand. And that is the product of what I work for every single day. Kimberly York, I think we are out of time. Thank you so very much. If we have time, I'll close on one final piece. If we're out of time, I will respect that time.
Go for it.
Okay, this final piece is called, and I have had fun tonight. We have taken topics all over the map and really summed them up still in revolution. We've summed them up still in how do you use this transformative piece. And what you said in there, man, it was powerful. What you said in there about the immortality of writing. When you write, for all the writers in here, that your words will still exist 400 years from now, and there's life in that. And this is a young man who, we won't get into the stories like I did Greg, but Greg, he's like, please don't. But for you to survive over all that's presented to you and still say, I'm going on a full ride to Morehouse College. There would not be a dime left for me to pay. No student loans. This way, I'm gonna make it happen, Miss Honey. I promise you that. And to be a freshman at 17, now 18, I could not be, I'm gonna tell you just like I told Greg, I could not be more proud of you. I'm proud of you, young man. You keep fighting that fight and get all the way to the end. You're part of that revolution, like every single person on this line is. You wouldn't be here if you wasn't. So, boom, COVID crisis chaos. From a Minneapolis breeze, how can you stand before God when you've already knelt on a man? Justice for all? Does that include the Black man? Can you take a life with your hand still in your pocket? You know, he did that. If you look back at George Floyd's death, his hands was in his pocket. How you kill a man with your hands in your pocket? You still stand before God? Like, God, why could you ever stand before God when you've already knelt on a man? Justice for all. Does that include the unarmed Black man? Can you take a life with hands still in your pocket and the victim is still guilty on every docket for doing things like watching birds in Central Park? I can't breathe becomes your aphrodisiac. Serve and protect with hands behind back. He did not resist. He did not attack. His mistake being Black. While Black. COVID. Crisis. Chaos. And you are likely hard pressed to find a person who doesn't want peace. COVID, crisis, chaos on city streets, and we need justice and we need peace. These two twin towers, southern breeze, bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. But what's the root? Can we get to the root of the matter? This year, humanity asked the question maternally, what's the matter? Premature graves and windows shatter, and no one wins the morning after when sorrows and grief have replaced the laughter. COVID, crisis, chaos. And this is not a situation that we can avoid. Oh, I still call out the name George Floyd, as he calls out the name Philando Castile, and he called for Emmett Till, but the blood spills still. And he calls for his ancestors, and the blood spills still. And a nation is crying out, peace be still. Activists activating answers, mothers moaning, motivators, protesters, poets, protectors, children crying for COVID, crisis, chaos. And this is not about which side of the crisis we are on, because in this, there can be no racial divide. This is not about what side of the crisis we're on. There can be no racial divide, no gender divide, no spiritual divide. We all are on this human race side. And I have tried very hard not to write about this and subconsciously not to think about this, because there is a wailing and aching about this where I long for the day to pump my fist and to pound my fist and peace like this, looking for just us. When this is our Montgomery bus, this is our Prentice Bridge, our march for freedom, our march for peace, for death and destruction to cease, where mothers no longer grieve. And a nation cries out as we listen, I can't breathe, triggering national grief. And poetry is life, so I'm not trying to be morbid. But I thought that the worst thing I would see in 2020 was COVID. But we went from COVID to crisis, to chaos, national pain, national rage. Peace and justice have to be the players on the stage. I'm strange fruit, but I keep writing a new page. When it's not water hoses, it's pepper spray. 2020, but we're still seeing Freddie Gray and Tamir Rice and Sandra Bland and Tanisha Anderson and Oscar Grant and Alton Sterling and Mike Brown and Eric Gardner and Walter Scott and Breonna Taylor and this is a conversation that we can't avoid. So much bigger than Floyd, so much bigger than communities destroyed, way bigger than the National Guard deployed. COVID, crisis, chaos, as a nation screams for peace and just us. And no one seems to win. These twin towers, one falls and quickly follows his twin, still crying for peace and just us. Still crying for peace and just us. New Mexico State University, thank you so very much for inviting this poet servant, Honeybell Bay, to be a part of your Black History celebration. Thank you.
Wow. You know, I want to say and share something with you all, and Honey will probably kill me for doing this, but I need to share it so that you all can understand the magnitude of the gift that she has brought and shared with us. On Friday, I reached out to Honey, and just to, touch base about today, and she sent me a picture. Just 4 days ago, she was diagnosed with pneumonia, and yet she is here. And yet she is here. And yeah, knowing Honey, and I know the story, the story behind the story. And what I want you all to know, she hasn't asked us for one red cent to be here. Not one. Not one. I reached out to Honey long before the inauguration, so long before we knew about the National Youth Poet Laureate coming. And I reached out to Honey. I hadn't talked to Honey in a couple of years since I left New Mexico. And I reached out to her, and it was as if no time had passed. And she said, Kim York, absolutely, just like she did when we were back home together, sharing stages and doing different things together. This woman, this is all her heart and has been for as long as I have known Honey. And BSA and I, we sat and I shared we went to YouTube and watched some of her videos as we were talking about planning. And I said, I have somebody that I think that we should bring. And I shared the videos, and we were all just kind of sitting there, just kind of with our mouths open, just at the disbelief of the level of authenticity that she brought, and just her sharing her unadulterated story and her unadulterated heart. And she is unapologetic in her approach, in her commitment, in all things. I love you, Honey.
Thank you.
I can't wait to get home to put my arms around you, give you a big giant hug.
I love you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I so appreciate you. And as soon as I told her, and the picture I showed her was all these meds they wanted to take, she said to me, and this is self-care, she said, honey, we can cancel this. And I replied back to her, I am too excited to cancel this. I'm going to take every Z-Pack, every Kodak, whatever they have for me. I'm going to get this together in 4 days. I will see you in New Mexico. You are not canceling it. We are not rescheduling. And I think it was meant that I'm here tonight for each and every one of you. And I'm going to make sure once you send me the numbers that I package and send these out to everyone who's on the line. It's going out tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can everybody unmute themselves so that we can give her the round of applause that she deserves?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm coming home soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. BSA, do you all want to share or have any final words?
I just want to say that, sorry. I just want to say we're in the same office, 6 feet apart, but we have been very emotional over here. I think I speak for everyone when I say that there has been laughter. There have been plenty of tears, but also just a lot of pride here. And I can honestly say that after this, and I hope everyone does the same, I'm going to go home, wash a little bit of tears from my face. And I'm going to look in the mirror and say, I love myself.
Come on.
And, you know, I've never been much for labels, but I'm proud to say that I am proud to be part of the Black community. I'm proud to be queer. I'm proud to be a fighter, and I'm proud to be here. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for supporting us, Honey Bell Day.
Since you said you much for that, you've had some laughter in there. I gotta throw this in. Please be proud to rock dope hair too. Your hair, that's one of your that's one of your categories. It's the first thing I said to you when you got on the line. That hair. Oh, you rock that. Okay, I had to throw that in. That's our little inside laughter.
I just want to say thank you so much, honey, for being here with us and really just sharing how amazing you are, your talent. I was crying the whole time, but I love you so much, and thank you so much for sharing your words and so much pride, just so much pride and confidence that I love. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, team.
Dylan, thank you for being here. I didn't get a chance to acknowledge you earlier, but I wanted to acknowledge our collaborator in Black History Month this year from the library. I am very intentional about reaching across campus and our community and collaborating. And so Dylan stepped up and reached out to us to ask if he could join us in planning and celebrating Black history. So Dylan, thank you so much to you and all of the library staff.
You're absolutely welcome. This has been a wonderful evening. I've really enjoyed the programming that you and everyone else has put together, and we're happy to be supporting you all in it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any parting words?
I would like to say something. So I'm not a part of any campus. I literally just went on Instagram and was like, let's see if I can get my Zoom to work today. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to, you know, be present in all of this, you know, hear what Honey shared with us today. I don't know any of you, but I'm just so grateful that, you know, even that you guys, there was a collective group of people that had the thought to put this together, even though with COVID, so many things are changing. I'm like, if it wasn't for people that are going, you know, the extra step to be able to make these things like virtual things, I don't know what I would do. I'm like, I came home, I was like, oh, let me just hop on this call. And I'm so glad I feel like enlightened, you know, just being on this call. So thank you, Honey. And thank everyone, you know, the collective group that was able to put this together. But
thank you, Queen Poet. Thank you, Queen Poet, for living, for surviving, for being with us. Who's your baby?
This baby?
Yes.
This is my dog, Grace. She's literally like my best friend. And as you can see, she literally goes with me everywhere, to the grocery store. Well, not to the grocery store, but she goes with me in the car. She goes with me everywhere. And she just sits here. She wanted to listen too. So she's just chilling.
I'm just acknowledging her. I see her on the screen. I was, hey, Grace. I was just acknowledging her. Thank you.
Bree, if you could just hang on before, after everyone leaves, if you could just hang around for a little bit.
Sure.
This is dangerous. You know, I'm a poet and I'm still looking at you all. I keep reading. Don't play with me. So yes, we'll be here all night. Keep playing.
Kimberly, this is Gina. Can I say just a couple things, just real quick?
Absolutely, Dr. Jones. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. I thank you for this program. You all have done wonderfully to bring this beautiful Black woman here to speak to us and touch our souls. And I just want to thank her, honey. I thank you for being a blessing to all of us. And come back again sometime. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Miss Carol, did you want to say something?
I've thoroughly enjoyed the evening. Word. That's all I can say is word. I mean, you brought the word, definitely. And I hope our students picked up on where we are now and where we need to go.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and joining us. We really appreciate it. I think it was a whole success. I love seeing everyone's faces and being able to interact this way with you all.